5 o'clock. 5 o'clock. I'm gonna do this one more time in amongst my mess. So my stuff. Slowly getting my gear ready to go onto the trailer, and then I'm out of here. So, let's go up top and see what's up today. I think it's about, by now, it's probably about 10 after 5 in the morning, September 12th. That was my first sip of coffee. I was working on the poultry barn all the way up to last night, getting enough done. It's be easy to manage while I'm gone. All my stuff's laid out. Trailer's hooked up. Got to go to the Yamaha dealer at 9 right away and pick up my quad. I dropped off there for them to go down one end of it to the other to make sure nothing was going to pop on me when I was in the middle of absolute frickin' nowhere. Now, yesterday was quite the day. It's funny, I made a similar post yesterday. I made a video and a little bit of commenting my own view, my memories and views on what happened 21 years ago. I did the similar on social media pages. It's funny how sometimes people just knee-jerk react emotionally with rage when it comes to different topics. I don't get it myself. Sometimes it can be hard for me to wrap my mind around how people react. And that's a big part of the reason why I stay away from the comment section, right? Because I've got my weakness is when somebody comes looking to disrupt or fight, then I always want to go at it with them in a way. Defend, right? And it took me a while. I used to watch the comment section and just look for that asshole. And then when you see somebody people who lash out emotionally are very weak between the ears. It's just a fact. They're a weak individual. So it's also very easy when you know that to stick it to them, drive them a little more crazier. What's the end result of that? Well, it doesn't benefit anybody, right? I know that. But sometimes you just can't help myself. And that pisses off all the good people that have to sit and witness it. So I just don't do it anymore. But it's amazing, especially when it comes to various topics, whether it be the virus, the mask, the mandates, and 9/11 even. Can you believe that? People freak out and lash out in anger at 9/11. Because of me saying that I believe that the people responsible for it have not paid. That's all I said. Take from what you will, leave it. But that right there is enough for somebody to go, that's what you think? You just tell us what you think then. You know, and they go off. It's really bizarre. Imagine what that individual's day must be filled with if they are surfing the internet. Holy shit. Rage, rage, rage. But anyway, I don't even know why I just babbled about that. We have a big lack of common sense in society today, and I am convinced that it has been intentionally rubbed out any way they can to rub that common sense out of the population, because it works against the people. We want you to get in line, right? I gotta share this one more little bitch. The other day we're running the boat down the Alberta Inlet, and there's a small piece of town, Harbor Key. You got shops there, little shops there, food shops, coffee shops, lunch shops, sandwich shops, ice cream, smoking hot out. So I said, and we had about 45 minutes till the boat hauler came. So I said, sorry, come on, let's tie up right there and run up and get an ice cream cone. So we tied up. Beautiful view. It's a big concrete float where people can walk onto the float and look at the ocean, look up the inlet. And we're coming back, and here's a couple sitting there. Nobody's around them, and they're facing they're facing, what would it be, south, I guess. They're facing south, southwest-ish kind of maybe. And the breeze, the ocean breeze is in their face. Nobody is around them at all. Dude's wearing a mask. Dude's wearing a frickin' mask. And pulling it down to eat a snack and have a coffee and pulling it up with his wife, probably 40 years old, with a sea breeze in his face and nobody around him. You got to think the people that have successfully manipulated the people see displays like that probably fist bump and laugh, right? Anyway, there you go. Start my morning off with a bitch. That's probably not a good thing. All right, let's get into this. So, I had a moment last night, went in my inboxes and did a final copy-paste of new emails, and I came across a reply from yesterday's reading. So I thought, what the hell? I'll start off this morning with that reply, all right? Now, this is titled Yetis and Wolves, bracket, a long-standing feud, bracket, 9/11/22. Hi, Steve. Yetis and Wolves, a long-standing feud. There's an ancient proverb that goes something like, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And that would certainly seem to apply here, given your background exterminating wolves. The forest people, as they prefer to be referred to, have had a long-standing feud with wolves. So by your actions, that would make you their friend. People wear or carry all of their past actions with them as they live their lives. And as we meet people, we often say, I have a good vibe about this person, or I have a bad vibe about that person. What we're picking up, by way of our intuition, our gut feeling, if you will, is the frequency for energy signature that this person is giving off, their vibe. So certainly Yetis would be able to pick up your vibe as it relates to wolves. In your video, which was dated today, you asked me to tell you how I had come about this information. In the early 70s, I was part of a covert, unacknowledged military program for the Navy that was studying these creatures in the Cascades of Lower Washington State. I came into that program by way of my being employed by blank in Virginia at the time, and I had a lower-end top-secret clearance by way of the Atomic Energy Commission, which was the precursor to our present-day NRC, Nuclear Regulatory Commission. I was not in the military per se, but rather worked for this contractor that was doing work with the military. I was briefed at the time about this particular group or clan of yetis, so I don't know if the information I was given applied broadly across the species or more narrowly to just this group or clan located in the Cascades. There are lots of variations of this species, of course, across the planet. When I went to the Cascades, I witnessed a large male, a female, and 2 children. Their faces were very human-like, and their fur was dark brown and blackish in color. They were in a high meadow in the Cascades, and the female and the children were just mulling about, picking and eating berries. It was a very peaceful scene. At one point, the male approached them with a large buck elk over his shoulder. A buck elk. Obviously, for me, that's going to be a big question mark just popped up over my head. No one calls a bull elk a buck. At another time, the male ran up a steep rocky hill while holding the smallest of the children in his right hand. I remember that he ran up the hill at about the speed of a racehorse at full speed. Upon witnessing this, I really couldn't wrap my head around what I was seeing because it was traveling so fast. Also, the way in which he held the child was odd, in that the child was hanging from the palm of his hand, which was on the child's chest, and the child was facing towards the ground. If you're wondering why the military was interested in yetis in the 70s, back then they were interested in all types of paranormal activities, not just yetis. And it appears that a type of paranormal activity was linked to these creatures as well. My overall feeling at the time was that, like tigers in the jungle, they should be left alone. I was told that they had the ability to put words in your head and create feelings of dread and doom. I've never experienced any of this firsthand, and I mainly just observed them on 3 separate occasions. Came across your videos recently, and it triggered those old memories. I can assure you that they are indeed real, Steve, and the powers that be are very much aware of them. These yetis don't particularly care for humans. They tolerate some more than others, but I don't think they are out to get us. We'd be easy pickings if they were. If you're being asked by them to move along, simply comply and move along. Whatever you do, never point a loaded weapon at them. And if anyone intends to go out hunting them, make sure your affairs are in order and your life insurance is paid up, LOL. At any rate, I would never go out looking for them, but if I did come across them, they never run by themselves, always in pods, as it was termed back then. I would state what I was doing there, tell them I did not mean to intrude, and always treat them with the utmost respect. Knowing what I know now, I would not want to interact with any of them, and as I said previously, like tigers in the wild, I will leave them alone. Steve, the history of fighting wolves, you do well, I'm sure, if you ever run into any of them. All the best, John. Okay, John, I guess you haven't been following the channel too long, because it started off with my experience of being face to face with one. And I've seen them, I guess I've seen them twice for sure, maybe 3 times, and had numerous experiences with them myself. I'm not going to beat around the bush about it. I've had a good solid handful of people claim to have somewhat or serious secret clearance credentials in the past, and have made some pretty bold statements about when it comes to the military groups, covert ops, whatever you want to call them, and these beings. So far to date, not one has come forward with any solid information for us, or anything that can back up their claims in any way. I have some scientists who have backed up a lot, very easily, and I have absolute confidence in what they share. But let me show you guys, I'm going to explain one other. I've got an individual a year ago who was emailing us saying they wanted to come clean, possibly go fishing with me. They're probably watching right now. Come fishing with me, and share it all about their past as a military covert operation, eliminating the bad ones around the planet, or whatever they're doing. Problem solving, I think was the quote. And want to hook up and share it all. I'm like, all right, well. and this is all in confidence, I did share a handful of emails with you guys from this one individual as an example. There's been a handful. And I just said flat out, okay, well, I'll tell you what. Who signed your paycheck? Who paid you to do this? That's my first and only question, right? And that was also for me, a bit of a test, just for me. And that person came back and said, well, I can't tell you. I'm like, okay, see you later. I haven't looked for or returned an email since. It's that simple for me. If somebody claims to have this sort of knowledge or experience and you want to share here with me, you're not going to razzle and dazzle me in any way. It's not going to happen. So if that's what some people, I'm not saying this immediate emailer, but to other potential people there, if you're looking to get razzle and dazzle or sling your dick, this is definitely the wrong place. It's not going to happen. You're not going to be able to here. But if you have solid information that's going to help the people, or possibly help yourself, you're in the right place. All right? Yeah, I've had other people, I had another group claiming to want to give me what they offered me up $150,000 right off the bat, wanted me to go in the woods. They had some kind of new technology that could see through basically every single tree and shrub for miles, whatever it was, and they were going to go on an expedition, and I was going to be their gunman, and on and on and on, and it just was getting to be a little too much. Maybe that person's listening still, maybe they're not, and I gave them a couple hard questions that should have been answered easily if that was the absolute motive, and the answers were an absolute fail. I'm done. Moving along. I'm really babbling this morning, aren't I? Anyway, getting back to this original emailer. All right, so from what you know now, quote, from what you know now, end quote, in this email. You wouldn't want to go after them, etc., etc. All right, share with us what you know. Share with us what you know. Share with us what you experienced. Share it. Give us something. Give us something that's going to answer a lot of questions for the people. And no, there is nothing you can say here that will encourage people to go out and hunt them down. It's not going to happen. It's not even half of a worry. Okay? And as anyone knows who is familiar with these beings, any simple human being that decides they're going to go grab a rifle and go hunt down a Sasquatch, it's just not going to happen. We already know that we are absolutely outclassed. That is not an issue. It's not and never will be. And that's coming from a professional lifelong hunter, okay, who lives in the heart of ground zero for these beings most of the time, anyway. But anyway, if what you have shared with us is true about your past history of these things, these beings, you will have a piss load more of information that you could share with us. So, why don't you? Or not. Anyway, here we go. Moving along. Who we got? Let's get down the list. We got to get... Yesterday was a recent emails in. We got to get back way down at the bottom and find some people who have been patiently waiting for too long. And here's one here. My experience with Saturday. Hey there, Steve. I want to say thank you for doing this, for all of us who have had these experiences. I'd also like to thank you, David Plies and Scott Carpenter, for doing what you do. It allows for truth to be found and spread. Y'all are very brave men. My name is Joe Christie. I'm a young man who loves the outdoors. It is the only reality that is true and the only one that exists. The clown world that everyone else likes to reside in is a false illusion of what reality is. That illusion will only last for a finite amount of time, and it is starting to show. I never thought I'd be writing this sentence, but perhaps by the time you read this, it'll have been 3 years since the start of the lockdowns. I used to be the guy who laughed at anyone who talked about Bigfoot/Sasquatch and thought they were real. I'm not that guy any longer. I happen to be one of the many in the club of no return. It all started when I was living out in Colorado. I moved out to Colorado in 2017 to build new custom homes. With my best friend. Everything's going great. Out in the beautiful Rocky Mountains and camping and hiking a lot. There happened to be a really nice spot that my friend and I would camp at that belonged to our boss. I won't mention the location since it is private property, but it backs up to some national forest land. I just happened to be camping there that night with my best friend. We were the only two people out there at the time. His uncle or boss come out to visit us earlier in the day, but eventually left around 9 p.m. It was a crystal clear night out. The stars and moon were out and shining bright. We stayed up a little longer, listening to music, talking, drinking, and smoking. Eventually, my friend ended up going to bed around 12 a.m. I was still up for a little longer until around 1:30 a.m. I then went to lay down in my tent and go to sleep. I kept the rain fly off since it was a clear night and no sign of bad weather for the next day. I heard what I thought to be an owl hoot. Now I was working on new homes, compressors, nail guns, hammers, drills, and saws going all day. So, to say my hearing is perfect would be a lie. I also happen to work with a hunter who loved to throw out animal and bird calls all day long. We would throw 16 penny nails at each other on the job site and try sticking the claw of the hammer of a nearby tree by throwing them. I heard what I thought the first time to be a hoot, which is actually a whoop. So I decided to do as my coworker would and mimic the call. 3 whoops. Call out one after another, just like you hear in the Sierra Sounds, recorded by Ron Moorhead in the Missing 411, the Hunted documentary. I replied with 3 whoops, just like the 3 that preceded it. It returned the call with 3 more whoops. I fired back with 3 more whoops. What came next still gives me goosebumps to this day every time I hear it. But the following sound was as if 1,000 bands came together on one stage with all their equipment hooked up and gave the microphone to Sabe. It let out the loudest demonic gorilla chatter I have ever heard. I cannot express enough how loud it really was. Jets would fly out of the mountain ranges out there all the time. It was as loud, if not louder, than a jet engine flying over top of you. It sounds exactly like the Missing 411, the Hunted video of the Sierra Sounds. When it let out the chatter, I immediately fell deathly silent. I did not respond after that and immediately tried closing my eyes and going to sleep. Good luck. Later that night, something came into camp. He was breathing very loudly, very, very loudly. Now, I've seen elk, bear, mountain lions, beavers, and deer on that property. Nothing sounded as loud as this breathing. I could hear it walking, or better described as stomping. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. I think you get the picture. Or in case you don't, bipedal footsteps. It walked off into the national forest land. I've never been more afraid of anything in my life. Not another man, gun, crazy car accidents in the river, heights. I mean, nothing has ever made me that afraid. I woke the next day to a calm camp. My friend was up making the usual breakfast burritos. I asked him when I woke up if he had heard anything weird or loud last night and he replied with no. I was passed out, man. I was pretty drunk last night. I thought I was absolutely going crazy. I never talked to him about what I had heard that night until years later. Typical. I'd never heard anything like it in my life, and I've spent as much time as I can in the woods, nearby parks, CVNP, Cuyahoga Valley National Parks, Southern Ohio, Colorado, South Dakota, Tennessee, Georgia, West Virginia, and Utah. That night changed my life forever. Was to follow the next couple of years, I could have never imagined in my entire life. Here we go. It is March 31st, 2018, and my friend and I are moving back home to Ohio. He had an unfortunate accident at our rental house and ended up with a staph infection that was in his blood. He had to have open heart surgery at the age of 27. I wasn't sure if he'd be able to continue building houses. Now, I was being paid $50 an hour with no benefits or overtime to live in a state where the minimum cost of living at the time was $23 an hour. I couldn't stay by myself, so we decided to leave. I was sitting on my boss's back porch, tucked away in the corner, in a lounge chair, catching the last of the Colorado sunshine rays before I left. He lived on a golf course that was maybe 30 feet from his back door. I happened to be the only one outside at the time, and it was around 12 p.m. There is a 2-rail wooden fence that separates the golf course from his backyard. Just about 6 inches above the wood fence, floating inhumanly precise, in a parallel manner to the top rail of the fence, was an orange orb. It was floating slowly and so precise, no man could have created such a device. I was speechless, watching it float down the course. It floated to the tree about 15 feet in front of me at about 11 o'clock to my field of view. It shot up into the air about 50 feet. Above the houses and almost in front of the sun, it was now directly above me. It flashed and flew off into the distance over the mountains in less than 4 seconds. You read that right, in less than 4 seconds. Y'all remember those jets I talked about previously, comparing the Sabe sound to them? It would take one of those jets 14 seconds to appear from one range and disappear over the other range. I didn't tell a soul about it until 2021. I hadn't seen Dave Plattis' Missing 411, the Hunted documentary, until 2021. I told both stories to 2 friends of mine after we left Nashville for a fun road trip. The girl who was riding with us ended up moving to Florida shortly after and told me about the documentary. I never watched any of the documentaries or read any of the books, but at the time I would watch the Missing 411 Can-Am Missing Persons Project on YouTube all the time. And that's because of you, Steve. I happen to be familiar with those missing person cases, just never the videos. I watched the Missing 411, the Hunted, and got to the Sierra Sounds by Ron Moorhead when the whoop started. I immediately felt that intense fear again. Goosebumps instantly. At that point, I knew I heard what I had heard and wasn't a crazy person. I spent about a good amount of time in 2021 in the Appalachian Mountains of West Virginia and Virginia. Boy, I had no idea how many experiences I was about to have, but they stacked up quickly and consistently. So far, the other experiences have been in just West Virginia. I won't mention the parks, but if you live in West Virginia, you already probably know what parks I've been visiting. Smoke Hole Caverns. Been there? I've been there. Comes to mind. My friend and I were new to the area. He just happened to have purchased a property down there after the town Raynell had a horrendous flood in 2016. The plan was, and still is, to continue to fix the property up and then turn it into a market garden to provide fresh vegetables to the nearby community that has a very limited healthy food supply. That's a great move. We always loved to work and also play while we were down there and had 2 parks that we'd always go to. It had to have been sometime in May. We stopped at the park to stretch our legs and go jump in the creek to cool off after the 4-hour car ride. We stopped into the park's gift shop to talk to a few of the park officials there. We asked the man in charge of the gift shop, what are the best swimming spots along the creek and what trail is used the least here? He replied with a few spots along the creek not far from the shop and a trail that came to a dead end. He explained we would just have to follow the trail back the way we came in to get back. Now, I'd been a believer at this point, and I knew that Sabe existed. I found a cool sticker in the gift shop that has a picture of a Sabe standing in between 2 trees with the night sky shining brightly that says, hanging with the locals. I'll include it later in this email. We ended up heading towards the dead-end trail. Now, I'm sure you all remember that hunter I worked with who loved to throw out bird calls and animal calls on the job site. He is the person who showed me Steve's channel. We've been in touch over the years since building with one another, and he told me when I go out into the woods to not hoot and holler, no whooping, or loud celebratory noises. Now I knew exactly what I was doing, and I planned on doing it on purpose. While hiking on the dead-end trail, every 10 minutes, I'd let out a whoop or woot in hopes to encounter something. We end up approaching the park border clearly marked in the trees with the West Virginia State Park badge in their trunks. I go past the border and down a slight hill closer towards the creek sounds. Now it's probably only 20 feet past the border when my friend tells me, "Yo, Probably not a good idea to go past the border. You don't know whose property that might be. We're new to town and I don't want to end up getting shot for trespassing on someone else's property. I replied with, "You're right," but my back was facing him. As I go to turn around, I hear a female voice call out my name, Joey. Now I was pretty sure I didn't hear that with my ears, and instead it came from inside my head. I froze as soon as I turned around. I looked up at my friend and I asked, "Did someone call your name?" Notice how I said his name. I didn't ask, "Did you hear that? What was that? Someone calling my name out there?" He replied with, "Yeah." We started running out of there so fast. We got to the car and I told him why I was whooping and wooting while we were walking down that trail. He told me, "I was wondering why you were doing that, but I didn't want to ask." Now, I had not told him of my experiences yet and had never asked him if he believed in Bigfoot/Sasquatch. That night I told him and showed him the Missing 411 The Hunted documentary. Quick side note, whenever I ask people, I just ask people, what do you know about Sasquatch, if anything? Do you know anything about them? And I rub out the belief word. Jump to June. We end up heading down to the mouth of the creek where it flows into the New River. A bunch of us guys had all camped at this area 2 years prior to visiting the place again. It's a pretty popular camping spot for locals and tourists alike. Once again, we're out in the creek taking a bath since there was no running water at the property yet. We had left about mid-afternoon, and after working on the apartment for 2 days, we always end up bringing snacks, smoking supplies, and water to drink when we go out for hikes. We ended up hiking up the creek a little ways and hung out on a large rock and swam most of the day there. It was about 6:45 p.m. The sun was about to start setting behind the mountains, but we still had plenty of daylight left. We hung out in that spot until the sun was completely behind the mountains and decided to hike out back to the car. We end up jogging most of the way back. Now, if I had to guess, there's probably about 300 yards back to the parking lots from the flat gravel trail we were on. I was running side by side with my friend, and I had a large, and had a large metal water bottle that I carry everywhere. We round a bend of the trail, and all of a sudden, a quarter-sized rock hits me on my left elbow, carrying the water jug, and bounces off my elbow and hits the jug, making a gong-like sound. Now my friend was to the right of me. The rock hit my left elbow. I'm 5'11". To think a rock could have come up from the trail and hit me directly in the elbow doesn't seem very likely. I'm not saying it isn't possible. God knows damn near about anything is possible, but really, really, really unlikely. We get back to the parking lot and there isn't a soul to be found. No cars, no bikes, no motorcycles, people camping or walking. No one but just the two of us. What threw that rock at my elbow? I think we all know what threw that rock at my elbow on account of hundreds of stories of the same thing happening to people around the world. I mean, we've all probably seen the video of Steve getting hit with the rock as he is just sitting there telling us stories. Now on to the last experience. It was mid-July and hot. My friend and I are driving back down to the property in Raynell, and I decided to stop at the state park to go for a swim. It was about a 4.5-hour ride down this time, and we were excited to cool off in the creek. We take the furthest trail down past the water mill and head over the bridge and hike off trail for what seems like a good quarter mile. We find a spot in the creek we can swim a bit and a nice large rock to set all our supplies on. We hang out there for an hour or so and head further downstream to another swimming spot where you can submerge your whole body and keep your head above the water. We must have spent 3 hours there. We had left our supplies back on the large rock, so I decided to go back and get them so we could have a few snacks and take a smoke break. Come back to our new spot, and we pick out a rock to hang out on. We were slamming the snacks and just sitting there talking, passing the smoke pipe back and forth. I start to hear voices downstream. If I had to guess, maybe 10 or 20 yards, out of sight, but not out of earshot. I remember my friend and I asking each other what we thought they were talking about to each other downstream. We stopped talking and decided to listen. Boy, oh boy, was I in for a surprise. Like I said, my hearing isn't the best, but I could clearly hear them talking. Just that the conversation didn't sound like any language I have heard before, and yet it was a conversation. A complex dialogue between the two beings, just as if Sam and I were talking to each other only moments before. Now, I'm not a language expert by any means, but foreign languages have always come easy to me. Now, maybe that may be the dumbed-down version of education that we obtain in public schools, or I just excel at them. I've heard many languages spoken throughout our world: Russian, Arabic, Portuguese, Spanish, Italian, German, French, Japanese, Chinese, Latin, and so on, and it didn't sound anything remotely like those. It sounded primal, native, short syllables. When I realized what I was hearing, you can guess a shock of fear went down my spine. Once I had that shock, I told my friend Sam that we should head back to the car. I didn't tell him what I thought I heard until later the next morning. I asked him what he thought he heard. He said, "I almost forgot about that. It didn't sound like two dudes standing there talking in English. It was almost native sounding, and then it was definitely between two beings." I end up telling a few friends here in Ohio about the story, and when I retell it, I purposely change the wording when I tell it. Quote, "I remember hearing like a Japanese chattering," end quote. And Sam interrupted and corrected me and said, "No, it was more like native sounding, small syllables in a conversation, not like chatter." It confirmed to me that he really did hear it, and that he does still remember it as clear as day. So far, those have been a few of my experiences. I left out another orb story in Utah, and what I'm still not sure about, but the more I think on it, the more I believe there was a sabbat in a park right next to the neighborhoods of where I live, chasing a deer. Right next to the neighborhoods of where I live, chasing a deer. Sorry, there's no comma there. Sorry. Now, the deer was running around and had seen us, but stopped when it saw us, and something of which I did not look to find out was what I was hearing, because I'm almost 99% it was bipedal footsteps running away from us towards the cliff and river down below. I didn't want to alarm my friend at the time, but he was there and saw the deer as well, and more likely heard the footsteps. It had to have been at least 3 a.m. New Year's night. It wasn't crashing through the woods either. Just the footsteps are all that could be heard. I'm going to try to hang out there and see if they live in that nearby park. I'll keep you posted on any new experiences I have, but I'd like to end with this. I love the stories brought to us by the Owl Man and the Diary of Ash, Catherine in Florida, who lived on the 60 acres with the Savvy family, and the more recent podcasted John Blatt. I plan on making contact with these beings. If they are in fact the original race to live here and our DNA is 97% shared, then in my mind they are us. Maybe they try to scare us away because, as they have seen, we are quite the violent and destructive race. God, are we ever. Are we ever. Maybe if shown kindness and generosity, they may grow to like me. Maybe they'll just, in turn, eat me, and I'll never be seen again. Only time will tell. As far as I can tell, it would be a far better life than the current tyrannical one we live in. To all my brothers and sisters out there, be kind. Love one another. The only people who give a shit about us is us. If you think the ones who are in power give a shit about us, you'd be very mistaken, as you can currently see. For those of you in the know, I'm truly sorry for what is going on. It seems to get worse day by day. You know what is coming. It is about to turn the world upside down. We are the only ones who are capable of preventing that. Stay strong, healthy, and connected to one another. Joe Christie. Quick note for me. Gotcha, man. We're on the same page. Get it? And quick note to you guys. I was in West Virginia and I remember catching a frickin' yellow rainbow trout. Like a goldfish yellow. What's up with that? Is that natural occurring, or is that some manufactured trout species? I don't know. But I specifically remember that experience in that state, that's for sure. Shot some turkeys there. But anyway, man, appreciate your time you just gave us and everything you shared. I hope it helped you. It's probably helped somebody else for sure. I got another one here. And like you say, sorry, I'm reading. You're going to go look for those things intentionally and try to make friends with them. Just be aware that there's a very, very good chance that shit will start happening around your home from that point on, and you won't be able to stop it, and you may or may not like it at all. And next thing you know, your house is getting banged on nonstop, or shit's going missing, or pets and animals are getting taken or murdered, right? You never know. Careful what you ask for is all I'm saying. Starting to get light outside a little bit. Man, a side note, yesterday afternoon, driving to town, just around the corner here, I seen what I call as a holy F bear. A bear that makes it. At one glance, that thing, black bear, made me go, holy shit. Absolutely. It was absolutely massive. And yes, it was a bear. It was waddling along the edge of a field where I was actually picking hay bales not too long ago. So I was stood exactly where that bear was standing. So I just knew that thing was absolutely stinking frickin' huge. And Sarah was driving. I'm like, stop, back up. I gotta see this thing. We backed up. And then he waddled in behind some bushes, went to the timber. And I mean, I don't want him showing up here, but man, I'd love to see that bear again and film him. Just a frickin' beast. As I'm looking out at our fruit trees in the front, but I don't think we got any fruit left. It's just getting light out. Makes you kind of want to go see what's running around the property. Anyway, carrying on. Please read as soon as possible. Your video, Angry and a Warning. Steve, watch many of your videos and I have great respect for what you're doing. I just finished watching the video, Angry and a Warning, and I have some information that may address some of the items you discussed in that recording. I hope you do not mind me marking this as high importance, but I'm fairly certain that there are some serious events that are about to happen. In many of your videos, you have discussed your feelings regarding what has been done to humanity and what is being kept from us. In this current video, your frustration with the situation was clearly expressed. I absolutely agree with you and feel pretty much the same. Over the past 10 months since the election, November 20, I've been searching for answers. At first, I was looking for info on how an election that President Trump was clearly winning got turned around, given the highest position in our country to someone who is clearly incompetent and who has documented ties with a communist power that seeks to destroy our country. It was during the search that I began to find information that suggested that what happened with the election was just the tip of the iceberg. As I searched, I encountered specific individuals that seemed to have information that suggested that these people were highly connected with sources that were not usually available to pretty much anyone who was not at a high level in the military. Initially, I thought these people were full of crap and said as much. That is when they started to provide proof. On multiple occasions, I was told that in 2 or 3 days, the following event will happen. Every time, the event described by these people would come to pass exactly as they indicated. The events they described were significant events that usually involved the military or some agency. One example of this is when I was told that in 3 days, the data on the laptop of the son of the guy in charge would be leaked. 3 days later, this came to pass. If it was just one event like this, I could have chalked it up to coincidence. However, after the 5th or 6th time, I had to concede that this group had access to inside information that most of us would never have access to. I inquired why this information was being shared and was told that this is part of an extensive plan to get information out to the public. I was told to share what I had learned with as many people as possible. I have to admit that I was a bit hesitant at first, as much of the information that was shared fell into the category of difficult to believe. At the same time, the nature of the information provided, along with the things I've seen in the world, painted a picture that indicated that people needed to be aware of this. There are events happening that will change our world forever. The reason I'm writing you is to inform you that I believe we're on the brink of events that will change this world forever. It is my hope that you read this before all hell breaks loose, because it's going to happen soon. There's so much information that I have, it is difficult to determine the best way to help you understand what is going on. I guess the simplest way is to just state the most important items specific to the issues you addressed in the video I mentioned. Please note that I'm continually trying to disprove the information given to me. To date, I've been unable to do so. This suggests that the information regarding events that are currently happening outside the view of most people, along with the events that are said to be coming, are probably true as well. If you feel that I am painting a picture that suggests that the info I have is difficult to believe at first, then you are correct. The amount of info also exceeds what could be shared in one email, and a lot of it would raise flags that would draw unwanted attention. So here's the info I can safely share that is specific to your comments. There is a group of very evil people who have been working quietly to put themselves into a position where they will have complete control over the entire world. Unfortunately, I agree with that. This plan is almost complete. The last obstacle is the U.S., and they appear close to succeeding at taking down this country. It would appear that may be true too at this point of the game. Maybe not, though. This plan has been in progress for at least 200 years, probably longer. A portion of this plan is specific to population control. They need people to be in a state of mind where they do not ask a lot of questions and do not understand what is going on right in front of their faces. The term dumbing down America comes into mind. This is why so many people have difficulty in seeing what is right in front of them. They know that this will only work on a portion of the people, and that there will always be some who cannot be easily controlled. It was decided that the best way to handle this would be elimination of the uncontrolled. So the plan was also designed to decrease the population of the world by a substantial amount. This would make control easier. A recent illness made its rounds in the world. This is not an accident, nor is it what they say it is. The therapy for this is the real problem and is part of the previous mentioned portion of the plan. Your frustration with those who suppress info is how many of us feel. The things listed above are not going unchallenged. There are good people who are actively fighting against what's going on. This conflict is currently happening behind the scenes. I do not believe it will be hidden from the people much longer, as it is already spilling out into different places around the world. We are already in the third great conflict, but so far it has involved battles that the general public is unaware of. It is my belief that this is going to change very soon. It is also my belief that the good guys are winning. While this global conflict may move into the public arena soon, information suggests that it will not last long. I know the picture I paint looks pretty grim. I would not share this information if I did not believe it to be true beyond any possible doubt. I am a puzzle solver, and I know how to find holes in pretty much anything I deal with. As I mentioned before, I'm still trying to find the flaws in the info that was shared with me. I still cannot find any. Now comes the good news. When we achieve victory, and I'm confident this will be the case, there are things planned for this world that will transform our way of life into what people like you and I have always known it should be. Perhaps then we can make a concerted effort to share the information you have acquired. We may even be able to work towards establishing some sort of contact with the tall man and begin the process of learning more about them. I do hope this reaches you before the shit hits the fan. I also know you may be wondering why I do not use a secure email format to send this to you. Simply put, secure email does not exist unless you are high up in the military. All the services that claim to be secure are like tents designed to keep out the big guys. Every message from every source sent by any method, by all but a limited few, is recorded for analysis. There's nothing you or I can do to stop that. Hopefully we won't have to worry about that much longer. Please do not use my name if you decide to read this to your viewers. Before you make that decision, I must first issue a word of caution. The vast majority of those that I have shared this information with have responded with the usual lines about conspiracy theories. Even when I go through the step-by-step proof, it doesn't help most of the time. There are those who do come around when they see each bit of proof I have gathered. While your viewers are more open-minded than most, this may still be a bit much for them to handle. It could also damage your reputation, and I know it would result in an increase in the negative emails. I'll leave the choice up to you, but again, please don't use my name. Okay, man, gotcha, Rick. And just so you know, I don't know what's the date on this. This is a while ago. Anyway, Rick, so you know, obviously, I've always made it clear that once you get slapped in the face with the reality of what's really going on just in your backyard, in the forest and mountains, if your brain's firing independently in any way, you are going to go, holy shit. We're being absolutely lied to. What else are they lying to us about, right? And then you start digging. And I've been digging for a long time. So basically everything you shared with the people here through my channel, I'm somewhat or even quite familiar with. It's unfortunate. It takes a lot of time though, right? It takes a lot of your time to look into things. Doesn't matter what the topic is. It takes a lot of your time, and you have to have a lot of interest to be able to be driven in the direction of seeking out information for yourself. It's a lot of time. And the way society is set up today, not too many people have much time for anything but to work. All right? How sad is that, actually? That's not really too cool, is it? Most people don't have time to even think for themselves or look at information because they have to work so frickin' hard just to put food on the plates. But anyways, it is what it is. There is shit going on the planet, without a doubt. And the conspiracy theory, that little label, is unfortunately very effective in shutting people up, right? Or discrediting any topic, right? It's unfortunate. I don't use those words myself. I don't have any respect or use for them at all. But I do follow a lot of people who are diligently spending a shit pile of their time in this world digging up honest truth. And yes, there is a lot going on the planet right now. And there is some evil sons of bitches out there. I'll tell you what. Some evil sons of bitches. But anyway, I have a funny feeling at this point of the game. I got a phone call with a friend of mine the other day. He's a very intelligent, very successful man, and very frustrated at the displays of sheep in a way that are going on. And I don't preach too much about it. I don't talk too much about it here. I give subtle hints or subtle little statements here and now and then, but the fact of the matter is, I think possibly at this stage of the game, if you can think independently in any way, you are already looking into the truths, right? And I think it's pretty hard to push it on people who are just walking around a cloud, just like I feel it's hard to push this topic on the general public. And that's why I don't ever say, hey man, like, subscribe, and share the channel. Share a channel about the honest truth about Sasquatch to the general public when most people are trying to figure out how to make their best TikTok movie, right? This just doesn't make sense. If you are aware and you can think independently, you're going to find this channel and other channels similar because you're already digging, because that's how your brain fires, right? So it's a tough thing, man. It's a tough thing. It's frustrating. It's a tough thing to dig, gain knowledge, and then it can be frustrating to wonder why the F isn't everybody doing this? How come nobody's listening? How come nobody's aware of this? Trust me, I've been on that path for a long time. I think just to help me but to understand it more and not be as frustrated. I believe that your brain either fires independently or it doesn't. And there's nothing I can do about that, right? I can't go corral up a handful of people who are as smart as pickles and you just can't hammer common sense into people that don't have it. From what I've seen so far, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's somebody out there who is a guru of being able to slam common sense into people who don't have it. I don't know. I haven't seen it yet myself, right? But anyway, thanks for the heads up. I'm sure a lot of people are shaking their head right now. And there's probably even a bunch of people whining and sniveling because it's not the topic they came here to hear. Oh well, It's not about them, is it? It's not about anybody, but everybody all together in one package. Coffee's working pretty good, isn't it? What do we got? Bigfoot experience in Oklahoma. Weird, Oklahoma. Go figure. Oklahoma. I've been to Oklahoma. Filming my buddy team roping. I didn't think too much about Sasquatch or Sabe people at the time when I was there. Apologies, I sent this to the wrong email address. Hi, please keep my name out of this, but feel free to discuss state, county, and nearest town. The reason I want to remain nameless is I promised my dad before he passed that if I tell people of the stories, I would keep our names out of it. I shared this story with another who told the stories, but the more we can get to hear our stories, the better, no? Just call me Oklahoma Dude, please. Okay, dude. I live near a small town named Wilburton. It is in the tail end of the Ozark mountain range. Well outside of Wilburton is a huge state park and wildlife area. And we all hunt there. I always noticed my dad would do some odd things, like every few years he would go elsewhere to hunt, not in our mountain range. He would never tell us why. He would just pick us a place to go that was not near their property on the mountain. Well, we all went hunting one year and we made it to our tree stands well before dawn for deer hunting. Well, every day I had a pair of gray squirrels that would come and play with me in the tree every day. They would hang around and even eat lunch with me. I always packed them some snacks. Well, one day it was slightly foggy and really dark. Well, there were 6 of us, not far from each other. My father was in a tree stand not 50 feet from mine, slightly to the left and forward, and my brother was 50 or so feet to my right. All of us on well-traveled deer paths. We've never had a problem getting our deer for each season. Now, before I continue, let me explain. We're all adults. 2 of us are military, and all of us knew damn well what was what in the deep woods here. About 30 minutes. About 30 men until dawn started, the squirrels I was playing with hunkered down on the branch we were on and stiffened out. I'd never seen this behavior before in squirrels. I was talking to him and petting him, and nothing would make him move. Then I noticed everything had gone quiet. The bobwhites had stopped calling, as had all the other small birds. Everything had stopped moving and was deathly still. And then the smell hit us. It was like rotten eggs, garbage and skunk all mixed together. It could make one's eyes water from the smell. Then the chatter on the radios went wild. My brother said, something big just came through and I couldn't see it. I still cannot see it. Little man is headed your way. Little man is my brother's nickname for me, as I have a type of dwarfism. But I reached 5 foot tall, the tallest end of the scale to be a dwarf. Well, I heard it. And we all know skunks, badgers, and squirrels can make one hell of a racket in the dead leaves and brush, so I was only thinking it was one of these, and from the smell, I was betting a badger. My dad called, "Kiddo, are you okay over there?" Well, I was looking around without moving much, so maybe I could see what was going on. Then a tree between my dad and me snapped off at the ground and fell. Excuse me. The tree was as big around as my thigh. It was a pine tree. And it takes something big, and I mean really big, to snap one of those. Then this screaming started. I've never heard anything like it. And I've heard mountain lions and more. This screaming felt so unnatural that it instantly invoked fear. My brother, who served overseas during wartime, panicked, climbed down from his tree stand, and raced to the house on his four-wheeler. He later told us he realized he was safer in the stand, but he couldn't think rationally after it screamed. He swore. It kicked in his fight-or-flight mode as he ran. Well, while it was screaming, we all knew it was between me and Dad, which means he was about 20 feet in front of me. And for the life of me, I could see nothing. I could see nothing that broke the tree, nor was screaming and shaking other trees. I called to my dad, "Poop duck, what the hell is that thing?" He asked, "Can you see it?" I replied, "No, sir." He said, "Stop looking for it, stay in your stand. It'll leave once it gets good light, and we can go back. There is no hunting with them in the woods. I kept asking him who, but he wouldn't answer me. Once it was good daylight and we could see, he came and got me, and we left back to the house. We all gathered once we had returned, and he said, "I'm not going to tell you that we just had a visit from a Bigfoot, but I'm also not going to tell you we didn't. Make up your own damn minds what we saw and keep it to yourselves. If you tell people we were scared out of the woods by a Bigfoot, they'll think we're all nuts." And this was my first experience with one. No, I never did get to see it, but we did go back and look at the tree. We thought it was broken near the ground. In reality, it was pulled out of the ground and leaned over. It was actually put across our path we used on the four-wheelers to get to our feeders. My dad later told me, "Son, they come through here every 5 to 7 years. When they do, we cannot hunt as they are dangerous and run all the game off for a long range." My father was a special kind of man. He would walk you through the woods and all but call the game up to him and show you the woods and their bounty. He once told me he had snuck up on one and watched it eat cattail roots. He said that they were ripping them from the ground and biting off the ends. My second run with the hairy man, it was a nice fall month. I was out squirrel hunting. Well, I had found this perfect place to hide and shoot them. I crawled feet first down inside an old hollow log. It was propped up on a boulder. See, in our area of Oklahoma, everything is trees, mountains, and rocks. Latimer County is quite gorgeous. I was pretty close to my limit on squirrels and was hiding, waiting for them to come out, when I heard this loud rustling sound. I turned to watch. It was a large, hairy animal with red-colored hair. I knew what it was. He was ducking under branches and following a deer path. Well, I'm a smart aleck. When he was almost out of my direct line of sight, I whistled. When he turned, and I got a pretty good look at his face, and it was not what I had imagined. His eyes were small for his face, his forehead sloped and peaked. What it brought to mind was the head style of what we call a Neanderthal in appearance. I saw no ears, but a large flat nose. He was flaring nostrils and standing perfectly still. I held as still as possible, not wanting to scare him off and miss a chance of looking him over. This is in the mid-90s. No one had an easy carry cameras. So all I could do was watch. As I was getting my good look, he and I both heard my dad's four-wheeler coming. He broke into a run that caused me to lose sight from him quickly. When my father arrived, I explained what I saw and which way he went. He shook his head and asked, "You said red hair, right?" I nodded, so he flatly replied, "Well, we won't be hunting up here anymore this year." We went back and made squirrel dumplings and started talking of where we were going to go hunting this year. One of the other things I need to mention is I am half Native American from the Choctaw tribe. I went to one of the tribal elders who was a good friend. He sat me down and we talked. He called them by a name, and no, I can not remember what he called them. He explained there are different types of elders in the woods. The red ones are warlike and cannibalistic, and they call them elder brothers of the mountain, or red-headed cannibals of the mountain. While the black ones are friendly and helpful and watch over the forest. We call the black ones elder brothers of the woods. He explained the black ones are here all the time, but the red ones are migratory and travel like the tribes did in the days of old. He explained the black ones and the red ones hate each other, and the red ones are much bigger and more aggressive than the others. When the red ones are in the woods, hunting is scarce, and we will not venture far from home. My friend died not long after this, as he was ancient. He was over tending and watching a native burial ground. I'll never forget my run-ins with a Bigfoot, but this is my one and only sighting of a red one. My friend bet that the one who pulled up the tree when we were hunting and none of us saw was a red one. He knew there were many of us, and he wouldn't attack. He says they're all smart, much smarter than we give them credit for. I asked how he knew, and he chuckled. Little one, if they were not, would white man not have one for evidence by now? The elder of the tribe thought that Bigfoot liked me as I was small like a child, and to them I would be a child. He said they would come to and help a child. Well, except for the red ones. I was thin and very short, as I told you. I'm a dwarf. I have a type of dwarfism called achondroplasia. It is the most common type. A side note, they'll be coming through this year, as several members of our family have already had sightings. I once sent my information and details of when they should come through again, once long ago, to the blah 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 RO, but they never responded to me. It always amazed me when people say they contacted them and never hear anything back. For your information. Okay, man, gotcha. That's quite the frickin' email and slew of experiences. Your dad sounds like a very intelligent, very wise man. Lucky to have him in your life. Pretty crazy. I would like to see, I'm guessing that's quite a while ago, unless I don't remember the date that'll happen, but I'd like to see that uprooted tree. If by any slight chance, maybe, you ever go back in that area and it still might be sitting there leaning, so I don't imagine it would have replanted itself. And if you feel like it and you think about it, take a quick picture of that and send it to us with something beside it for a reference to how big the tree was. That would be significant to show the people, right? It's like when I videotaped, was it 2 years ago I videotaped? Was that 2 years ago or last year? 2 years ago. I videotaped all of those young poplars snapped off, and then there's like a bouquet of about 5 of them that were pulled out of the ground and put on the ground. And for anybody familiar with the forest, when you see something like that, it makes you go, huh? And especially when there isn't one, not even a hint of a scrape on that soft, thin bark from claws or teeth. Or antlers, right? Nothing. Just on the ground. But anyway, here I go. This is it. This is the last video from the man cave you guys are going to see for some time. Maybe, possibly, I'll be able to get some shares out with the GoPro while I'm away. Pretty sure I should be able to eventually. And then and show you guys, share my adventures. There's one thing that's got me curious. I got a little thought in the back of my head going on the past couple of days, because there's a huge fire in the mountains just south of where I'm going, and it hasn't jumped across the water yet. Hopefully it doesn't. But at any rate, there's a lot of life that's going to be displaced from those mountains. Where is it going to end up? Is what's in the back of my mind, because this one area I found, I seen at least 16 bull elk while I was deer hunting. I found this zone where nobody goes, and I hunted the shit out of it. I shared that with you guys last November when it was snowing, and I felt absolute calm, at ease, no pressure, no prints on the ground, no sign. Everything's cool, perfect. I found a good comfortable place for me to go hunting by myself in the middle of nowhere. But it's in the back of my mind. Right now, I'm thinking, I wonder if that's going to change because of this fire. I hope not. Damn it, right? It is. It's a significant fire. And it is also right where, a couple years ago, we had a man, a U.S. veteran, who was camping up here in Canada. And he was in his van with his dog, and he was camped near a trailhead in the forest, and this massive thing with glowing red eyes came down. I think it screamed at him through the window of the van. I think shook his van possibly, and was pissed, scared the living shit out of him. And he finally shared what happened here, and he also gave us an update that him and his dog have gone back in the woods and thanked for the relief he received from sharing his experience here. Anyway, where that went down is where the fire is. And also, not far from there is where another guy emailed in his property along the river. He's had ongoing experiences there. And on and on and on. What I'm saying is, it's just I got that little seed in the back of my head that's thinking, oh man, I hope this isn't a game changer. Right? I hope it isn't a game changer for where I'm going. We'll see. Anyway, I gotta pack my shit up. And I'm out of here. Adventure time. And I'll be back eventually.